Thank you very much. Thank you, all of you, for being here. Thanks to all who organized this important event. It is very important. We have a big election coming up. All of you know that. And we are very close to it. At this point, it is Wednesday, so we are 48 days away. That's it. That's going to go very, very quickly. But I want to tell you that I make it a personal priority of mine in whatever we do, as long as I've been Secretary of State, to make sure we're doing it in as inclusive a way as possible. I am the son of an immigrant, and so I know the importance in particular of reaching out to new Americans or those whose native language is not English, and we do that. So we do everything we do in our office on elections in 11 different languages. It used to be 5. We more than doubled it to 11 languages, soon to be 12 because we're adding American Sign Language in the next few days. So all of our materials, our briefing materials, will be in American Sign Language as well. So for example, we have all of our website and fact sheets. We have videos. I just reviewed the Spanish video this morning, just a few hours ago, that will be going live very soon. We do voter registration applications in paper form, absentee voting, online toolkit, graphics for social media, and the like. There are a couple things that we need to work on, such as the online the online voter registration tool that has to do with a technological issue that's going to take some time and money to resolve. But other than that one thing, every other thing that we do is in all 11, soon to be 12 languages. And I think that's an important thing. And one other historical note I just want to say, I'm sure you have encountered, I know I have encountered from time to time, people who are skeptical or even opposed to printing anything we do in any language other than English. And I always point out a number of arguments, but one of the things I always point out that typically people don't have a good response to is that Minnesota started doing this, started printing elections-related materials in other languages starting in 1896. Not 1996, 1896. We have been doing this for 124 years. The only difference is the languages. In 1896, the languages were Norwegian and Swedish and Finnish and German. Now they're not. None of those languages are on the list, but it's the same principle. So to anyone who thinks that this is something new or this is something we're doing for one set of new Americans and not others throughout history, that is just absolutely false. In fact, in my office, I have from the Historical Society the originals from 1896 that you can take a look at, and you can see what I'm talking about. So this year is a special election in many ways, one of which is we're doing it in the middle of a pandemic. And so for all communities and all voters, it takes on an additional meaning and additional importance. So we're treating it, at least in part, as a public health issue. We think that's important. We have 3,000 polling places in Minnesota. We are expecting about 3 million voters in Minnesota, and the math works out pretty evenly there to about 1,000 people per polling place, roughly, very much of an average. And so there are 2 things in particular that we're emphasizing this year to everyone, all communities all over Minnesota. One is to please consider voting from home this year. It's easy. It was already very popular even before COVID, but now it takes on added importance. It's very easy if you go to our website, which is mnvotes.org, mnvotes.org. It takes maybe 5 minutes to order the ballot, and it comes to you at home. It's not only comfortable and convenient, but this year there are extra reasons to do it, namely reducing risk for yourself, but also helping those who choose the option to go to the polling place. Everyone who votes from home this year is making it a little bit safer for the people who choose to go to the polling place on election day. Both are equally legitimate, both are equally worthy and okay to do, but we think if we can get people to vote from home, it will be safer for everyone. And so far we are. We are on course right now to have about 1.2 million Minnesotans choosing that option, which means almost certainly over a third of all the voters, which I think should really help a lot. And then the second thing that we are always looking for, but particularly this year, is people to step up and be an election judge or a poll worker in the polling place. very critical. We've seen what happens in other states during the primary season when they don't have enough people at the polls. Very difficult scenes, people being turned away, a lot of confusion, and we don't want that in Minnesota. And so we're asking people if they'll step up and do that job. We are in particular need of people who are bilingual. It's a particular need in the metro area, in Hennepin and Ramsey counties in particular, but all over the metro area. And I just want to remind everyone that that is a paid position. It is not a volunteer position. It is paid. You even get paid for the 2 hours of training. You can do it as young as 16 years old. And if you're 18 or older, there are no geographic restrictions. You can, if you live in Minneapolis and you hear that they need help in Eagan or Minnetonka or anywhere else, you can go to any of those places. You aren't connected to your city or your county. And I want to remind people that whether it's being an election judge or a voter, we're doing everything we can to make the polling place safe. In the primary election last month, it was a very good practice round for us. We spent the time and the money to buy and to distribute to all 3,000 polling places, as we will in the general election in 48 days, high-grade masks for all poll workers, masks for voters as well, hand sanitizer and pumps and wipes, and rules for the polling place that ensure that it's clean, wipe downs of all the polling surfaces, social distancing, rules about the use of pens and signing your name. And so we feel very good about that this year. So I just wanted to say thank you for having me. I want to listen to others talk, but I wanted to start out by at least talking about the obvious, which is we have a big election in front of us. And I want you to know that I will always want to be as inclusive as possible. I appreciate the partnership with many of you on this meeting, and I am open always for your thoughts, comments, including criticisms. If there's something, and sometimes we hear that we're not doing fast enough, or we should be doing something differently, or more of, or less of, please let us know. We want to be a partner, and we want to be a close partner with you. It's extremely important that we reach out to all Minnesotans, regardless of where they're from, regardless whether they're new Americans or not, regardless of language and cultural background. And as I say, as the son of an immigrant, that's personal to me. So I want to thank you very much, and I'm happy to listen. And I know you have many fine guests and panelists left to speak. Thank you for the honor of being with you.
Thank you so much, Secretary Simon. We really appreciate that you are here this afternoon, and also for sharing the information. And we'll make sure to also write down your website on our chat. People are know where to go. But we're happy that you're here and that you're going to be also supporting us and making sure that you keep the integrity of these elections and the voting safe for everybody. Thank you so much. So without any further ado, Rodolfo, would you like to enlighten us a little bit about Latinos in the state and also about Latino voters? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Secretary, as well. And yeah, I was going to start talking about what it is about being Latinos in Minnesota, because we always talk about this large segment of the population, but so many times we are not clear about how we are. So that's why I want to start with some background information about the Latino communities to end with some approach to what it is, what we know about the voting tendencies or trends among Latinos as well. So next, please. Latinos, as Secretary Simon said, we are here in Minnesota also from 1860, where the first recorded Latino was established. And later on in 1865, out of the 2 counted in 1860, they were 4. So we grew to 100%, and everybody was scared that time. But since then, Latinos have been one of the populations that's been growing faster than any. And I'm going to talk about based on the census data thus far and estimations that come out from it, because we haven't yet counted entirely the 2020 census. But also just to tell you that it's better to go with these estimates based on the census than speculations. But it's because of this data is going to tell us what is going on. So as around 2013, it was estimated that 330,000 people were living in the state with Latino origin. As today, we are estimating in ASER around 350,000, based on the trends we noticed along the time. But still, we are the fastest growing population in the state. Next, please. By 2050, we reached this number earlier, but it was estimated that 350,000 people were going to be Latino in Minnesota, which suppose itself 140% growth in this period, 2010, 2050. And now it's very important to recognize that two-thirds of the population of Latino ascendants are living in the seven-county metro area. So we are very concentrated within the Twin Cities area and surroundings. And this is, 75% of the entire Latino population. More than 7 out of 10 people will live in this area. Next, please. Now, as today, or even very close to this data from 2015, we represent 5.2% of the population in the state. And we might be a little bit over 280,000 people as we estimated, because we try to include the undocumented population that it is not reported by the census. And also, it's important to recognize that just 26% of the entire Latino population are foreign born. The rest, and I am talking about 74%, are either born in the United States or they are born in any other territories like Puerto Rico, for example, and they are of Latino origins. And also, just as a quotation from those foreign-born people are here, many of them are international students. So Minnesota attracts a lot of international students, but they are constituting more very large segment of the foreign-born population in the state. Next, please. Now, among the citizens who are already in the United States, in Minnesota, sorry, among the citizens, most of them have opted for naturalization, so they are becoming citizens after arrival, and that is so low. It's really important. It's not really something that we can dismiss, because that means they were originally citizens from a different country and became citizens of the United States. So culturally speaking, that is for me really important, and we are going to see how later on. Also, 92% of Latinos under 18 years of age are born in the United States. So this is Minnesota. Almost 9 out of 10 Latinos are citizens born in the United States. But also 44% of Latinos 18 years or older are born in the United States. So we do have a big proportion of our population being citizens. And that is important, because that also talks about the misconception about the Latino population in Minnesota. Next, please. The origin, you can see here, for example, this is just a comparison that it's always coming up handy. The data comes from Minnesota Compass, from Wilder Research. You see the Hispanic population in the state represents kind of the larger group in the trend, and also is growing faster than any other. Today, we can say, for example, where two or more races are growing even faster, and even Asian immigrants are bringing more population. But it is still, as a trend, clear that the Latino population is among the non-majority groups the most important. Next, please. Also, And pointing out to what Secretary Simon was talking about, Spanish is the second language most spoken here in the state. So as you can see, the comparison with other languages in the entire state is really, really impressive. So we need to really consider this. Over 200,000 people speak Spanish at home, and most of them are bilinguals. I didn't go through that detail, but most of them are bilinguals, but they do prefer to manage things in Spanish. So that is also something I wanted to highlight out from what we've been working on. Next, please. Now, we worked in 2018 in a big project to identify where the leadership for Latinos is located. So we launched a large survey, and this survey was originally developed in 1817, but by 2017, and by 2018, we did have all these results. And you can see most of the leadership for Latinos are concentrated in the Twin Cities areas as corresponds to our population concentration. But we do have important people living out in the state, out of the metro area. Now, curiously, if you can see, it's hard to see in this presentation, but most of those who are out of the Twin Cities areas are older people than 55 years. And most of the young people who are being considered themselves leaders, less than 18 or between 18 and 24, are concentrated again within the Twin Cities metro area. Why I'm mentioning this? Because they are going to be what we call the new generation of voters, and many of them already from 2018 transited into the age for them to vote, and they are part of that 92% of the people who were born in the United States younger than 18 years of age. So we have a very strong number of people working as leaders. We need to approach them, but also we need to go and see what is going on out of the state. Like in Nobles County, you see there is a presence of people who are younger, but we still have people who are not that young anymore. And we need to really establish some strategy to reach them out in order to communicate about this electoral process. Next, please. Now, what happened in this survey we were doing? First, we base our, compare our information with what it is published by different sources, and among them peer research, but also Minnesota Compass. And we know that 3.1% of the eligible voter population is Latino in the state. So that is 127,000 are eligible to vote, according to peer research in 2020. By 2016, we did have 18% of the Latinos eligible to vote who really voted, according to the survey we did have. So that is out of the close to 127,000, only 20,000 went to execute their vote in the process. That is by the year of 2016. Now, there are diverse districts where we look at the largest Latino population participation in elections. And they are important, the fourth and the fifth districts, where 4.2% of the eligible voters are Latino, and the first and second districts who are adjacent to these ones. In the southern, particularly, the first district is including Nobles County, 3.6 and 3.9% of the population who are eligible to vote are Latinos. So why I'm saying this also because it's really important to focus on where we can have more incidents. As if we go up north in the districts that are located more in the northern area, we have even 0.9% of the population who is Latino eligible to vote. I didn't talk about the other districts, but I can send you the data. But northern district, the third district north, the other ones that are more in the north have this importance of Latino voters. That's why I selected these four only. So 4 and 5th, are Minneapolis and St. Paul, and the first and second districts are southern and southeastern Minnesota. So that's why they are where there is major concentration of population. Uh, that is important why we can have this influence. Next, please. Now, this is really important because as for data available, when you go to many different sources, this is from Compass Wilder Research, uh, we cannot find reliable sources that tell us how Latinos are going to vote or not. In this graph, you can see white non-Hispanic, over 60% of them voted, Blacks over 50%, Asian over 40%, and Hispanic or Latinos are, as we said, 80%, according to our estimates from that survey. There is no way for many other approaches to really establish what is the percentage of Hispanic voters who are eligible to vote, who really voted. That is a worrisome because that means we are not really either declaring that people being Latinos are voting, or it's not being registered, or I don't know what's going on. And I guess that is something that we need to work together with the Secretary of State of Minnesota in order to generate better statistics on this, because we are lacking of this for those who are doing this kind of follow-ups. And that is, I see, a worrisome. Next. I guess that is all. And what I was going to say is also, we have a lot of work to do, and we've been doing a lot of work in engaging Latino voters. I work sometimes with Francisco in developing some strategies, some tools to approach them. I love the way he works, and he provides a lot of the statistics that we are happy to work with as well. But still, we need to bring more visibility to this big number of people who are eligible to vote, as we are the second uh, or the first minority, the second largest group of population in Minnesota. And we do have a lot of people who can really participate, and therefore the say level of decision that we do have in our hands is really important. As the title of this meeting is, we are a sleeping giant. So we need to work all together in order to bring these people to really participate and make our work to be more visible in the electoral process for everyone, not just for us that we are digging in to the data, but also everybody has to know what's going on with Latinos. So thank you, Rosa.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Rodolfo, for showing this robust data. I think that definitely it will guide the strategies and the different interventions that organizations and volunteers can also undertake. So this is very useful for everybody. Thanks. So next we have Francisco Segovia. Francisco Segovia is the Executive Director of Comunidades Organizando el Poder y la Acción Latina, COPAL. So Francisco, given this context, can you give us or tell us a little bit about how you work on the census and voting combine to strengthen Latinos' participation in democracy?
Okay, buenas tardes, gracias a todos y a todas. Thank you, everyone. Good afternoon. Rosa, do you want to play the video first and I can answer that question? Would that be okay?
Yes, I'll ask maybe Cecilia if she can allow me to share. Oh, here it is. Thank you, Cecilia.
We have no sound yet.
Francisco, maybe you can put the link in the chat box and folks can access it.
Yeah, so I can do that. So let me do that. Yes, I put it right there, and so you can see it. Okay. So, and I totally understand. Half the times I am stuck myself with Zoom and all these platforms. In any case, the video is for you all. This was some piece of work done by Maria Isa. Many of you know Maria Isa. And so, and the people in the video are locals here. So the question from Rosa, feliz Día de la Latinidad, happy Latinity, if there is a word for that. So about census and elections. So let me tell you one thing, and this is going to be interesting in comparison to what Rodolfo said. We, as Copal, this is the second year. We're a very young organization, 2.5 years old. But this is the second year that we have been doing elections. The first year, we got about 7,000 pledges, and about 70,000 people, 70% of the people who pledged to vote voted. How do we know that? So we use something that we call a voter file. A voter file is a database that once one person voted for the first time, that name goes into that database. So we, our organization, like many other organizations, uses the voter file to do our electoral work. So according to the voter file, people who have voted at least once that is there is about 15,000 Latinos. And as you saw the numbers from Rodolfo, there may be so many others who, for many different reasons, are not registered. So they are not going to appear in the voter file. So for what we know and what the various filters that we play using the voter file, we have about 15,000 people identified as Latinos who have voted once or one in a lifetime here in Minnesota. So from that universe, we as an organization stated that our goal was going to be to engage or to make so many thousand phone calls to be able to get 15,000 pledges. And what a pledge mean? A pledge is when you call someone and say, hey, would you pledge to vote? And the person says, yes, I pledge to vote. So we move that name into a special section of the database. And let me tell you that yesterday, out of 130,000 phone calls that we have done so far, 11,000 have pledged to vote. That's an important number. Out of these 11,000 who have pledged to vote, we are going to keep following up with them, providing information about what questions do you have, or we keep sending them text messages. So we have sent about 80,000 text messages so far, asking if they have questions or assisting them with issues. Like, for instance, many, not every one of the people who we have engaged out of the 11,000 have said, yes, I will vote for mail, but I don't understand how to do it. I don't have a printer to print my application so I can fill it out. Or other challenges that, as easy as the Minnesota system is, obviously people still have challenges. I myself, when I wanted to do the application online on Spanish, I find out that I had to print the form and I had to mail it out. So I did it in English. And so from this universe of voters, it is key for us to put a vision, and that's why I wanted to show you that video and the other videos we are creating, is because we don't want just to vote. That's an important piece. We need to politically educate our community about values and why voting or electing person is key. It is not just to go and vote and go home and that's it. It's about who meet our values as a community. So those videos, in a way, are intending to create that political education that oftentimes is not present. So number two, the text messaging is the way to relate to people. And in this case, was asking me about census. We all know, I don't need to convince you, that census is key. $2,700 per year per person adds up. So what we have been doing is we have been connecting three pieces. One is the electoral file. The second, asking people about elections, but also asking them about census. Have you done your census? If the person says no, can we do it? Can we facilitate that and assist you to do it now? And in many cases, people say, yes, please help me to do it. And we do it. It takes about 10, 15 minutes, some of you know. But the third thing is about the COVID-19 issue. And the COVID-19 was an avenue to engage with people and connect them with resources. So in these triage connections, we email people about COVID. When they call us about COVID, we ask them about voting and also about census. Now, let's keep in mind that our organization is a C3 and a C4, so all this is C3 work, educating, engaging community members, and we still have about 4,000 more pledges to go. And so this week we are going to have a lot of students. We have different shifts that people can join. We do these via Zoom, and it's online, and we have a facilitator that provides that support. And through these many phone calls, some of the reports we have from the phone bankers is, number one, people love when we call them, because it's not just about elections. You know, our community, we always want to, I myself, one time I called someone who was telling me all his life, and I was like, okay, so that's great. But also excited to speak the native language, excited to hear that we are inviting them and supporting them as they need. And so that generates that sense of, helps with the isolation. Sometimes when you are in a situation where you don't know who to talk to, this is how we use it, electorally speaking. And the next thing that is coming up are voting guides. So we are in the process of completing some voting guides that once they are complete, they will be mailed out to people so they can use that as a way to screen the candidates who are in front of them. So with that in mind, I think that's some of the work we're doing. If anyone wants to either join for phone banking, send me an email. I will write down my email. But also, if you want to be one of the people in the videos, we have several videos that we are still putting together, and those videos are playing on Univision and YouTube. One of the YouTube, the first video, the YouTube video, the first one have been seen by 60,000 people. So send me your name that you want to be in one of those videos. We'd love to have you in the videos as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Gracias, Francisco. This is a very exciting work that you're doing. And thank you for inviting also community members to be part of it. It's great work that you're doing. Okay, so we're going to move, and we're going to hear from Anastasia Veladona. So last but not least, we have the Executive Director of Common Cause Minnesota. Common Cause Minnesota is a nonpartisan organization devoted to upholding the core values of American democracy. So, Anastasia, please go ahead. Thank you.
Buenas tardes. Good afternoon, everyone. So far, I like being right where I'm at right now, because it allows me to sort of tie everything in that we've gone through so far. So we started off with having the Secretary of State really walk us through what the Secretary of State's office has been doing and where those needs are, where we can partner with their efforts to make sure that we are reaching as many eligible voters as we can across the state, and we do it safely, right? We also heard Rodolfo really define for us what are we really talking about when we talk about the Latino muscle? Who are they? Where are they, right? Not just nationally, but here in the state of Minnesota. And then we heard about some really powerful work that Copal is really leading on with regards to holding power accountable, right? And creating a sense of sort of incorporation of civic engagement when it comes to our communities as a whole in that space of power, right? So we've got an election cycle coming on. Something I hear as the director for Common Cause Minnesota is a lot of frustration within our communities across the state about very transactional engagement, right? So we often hear from individuals when it comes to election time, predominantly those general elections, because those are kind of big deal, right? I mean, the presidential election, everybody, it's kind of sexy. Everybody wants to hear what's happening in Washington, D.C. But something that I really wanted to talk to you about today is with regards to what really impacts us as Latino people and how we can navigate that space of power where those power brokers are, those elected officials, right? Our own state capital. A lot of the policies that impact us as Latinos in a variety of different layers within our community happens at a more local level, right? It's our school board decisions. That is going to have a greater and more immediate impact on our Latino students' experience within the education system, and also how our parents are being included within that process and that system of education. It's going to involve our city councils. It's going to involve our county commissions. We hear a lot right now about housing issues. We hear a lot about policing issues. We hear a lot about economic development. I mean, all of those things really happen at a more local level. Those decisions are being made within our immediate grasp and our immediate reach with our vote. So that's why the work that Copal is doing, the information that ACER is really getting at, are really tools to help us figure out, one, how do we make sure that our vote translates into policy, right? So we look at all of the activism going on right now at a grassroots level. How do we translate activism, protests, email campaigns, calling your legislators, going to the vigil, right? Attending a rally. Well, how does that, because we always seem frustrated because we're always doing this. We're going to the rallies, right? We're helping and we're supportive of our brothers and sisters in various protest events. But how does that translate to policy? How do we get from the narrative to the action? And that's the work that Francisco was really talking about. And that's the work that Common Cause Minnesota really is trying to navigate, that intersectionality between social justice and democracy. And this is where every single person on this call right now or watching us right now, I want to say this. Where you are right now, no matter where you are in that spectrum, is exactly who we need to exercise that muscle before it atrophies. Because it doesn't really matter, for example, if we are nationally, giving you a little perspective, 60.6 million in 2019 population. The top 4 groups of that national Latino muscle are Mexican, Puerto Ricans, Cubans, Salvadorians, right? I mean, I can go on 4 in every 5 are US citizens. We can go on with all these stats and all these data points. But if we are not exercising that muscle, it atrophies, right? It continues to frustrate. It's like a snake swallowing its tail. We could be frustrated with the inequities for our Latino children in the education system. We could be frustrated about the lack of economic investment in our Latino communities. We can be frustrated with the Secretary of State's office or any other, right, government office that doesn't provide or create, culturally appropriate information or even create space for our voices to be part of the system, right, that's within place now. We could do all those things. But if we are not owning our political muscle, doesn't matter where you are in that political terrain. Doesn't matter if you're a Republican, an independent, a Green Party member, marijuana, it doesn't matter. If we are not a part of that political muscle exercising, how do we do that? I'm going to give you a couple of things that we can do right now. One of the most important things you could do is find out who is your city council member, who is your county commissioner, right? You already know who your mayor is. Who's your state representative at a state level? Who's the House representative at a state level, right? Find out who they are. Find out their email addresses. It's all public. It's all going to be on a website. But now here's the thing too. Look them up on Facebook and ask to be included as one of their friends. Find them on Twitter if you're on Twitter or Instagram. Many of them are. And follow them on that. Why? Because this allows you a direct contact with the power brokers. These are the people making these decisions. In the second that you are at lunchtime or in the store or in conversation with a colleague and they let you know about an issue that's concerning, you can flag them right there and then pick up your cell phone and send them a message about what you think about this issue, what you want them to do, what your concern is, what are your recommendations. Just as we have hearings at the legislature, there are hearings that are taking place right now in city council. There are hearings taking place in the commission level, right? You don't have to be there physically. You can submit testimony through an email. These are things, these are tools, these are tactics that we can take advantage of because we have that nifty little box that is literally a walking computer that allows you to send that information to them directly. These are ways that you can incorporate engagement with your elected official in an intimate way that's part of like you would email or text a friend. You know what? I have never had an elected official I've reached out to not give me their cell phone number. Call their legislative assistants, send them an email and say, I would like to get to know you better. Can you please share your cell phone information with me? Many of them have a business cell phone and then a personal cell phone. It's incorporating these types of relationships that you then start getting flagged for them. Oh, I've gotten X number of people in my district that are always sending me information or always asking me questions about a particular issue that they care about deeply. It doesn't have to be all issues. You can just pick one and say, I'm going to stick to education and inequities within our Latino communities and education. It's now that you know that Rodolfo and Francisco and myself and Rosa, we're all here. We're your tools too. If you don't understand something, if you have questions about something, email us or call us and we can have those offline discussions. I run into Rosa all the time at the Capitol. We collaborate on many things that has to do with the issues that impact our communities. Something I haven't touched on, and I'm going to end with this, is redistricting. If you hear or see the word redistricting, all that is a fancy word for voting maps. Where you and I are going to go vote November 3rd, that has been defined literally in a map. It's a district. Every 10 years after the census, it is so important that we're counted in the census, because if we're not seen in the census, we're not going to be seen when they draw those voting maps. And why is that? Because voting maps every 10 years are adjusted, their boundaries, they're adjusted based on the census. So the census is about counting people, and the process of drawing those voting maps, redistricting, is using those numbers to shape voting districts based on population. So if we're missed, if there's an extra 50,000 Latinos in District 4 that were not counted, when they're drawing those maps, they use those counting numbers. And if they're not seen, they're not going to be seen and accounted for in that district. That's where you see people getting elected to represent districts that don't match the values of the majority of the people of those districts, right? So if you're ever wondering why is it that like certain issues that are very specific to Latino voices and Latino families and Latino experiences in Minnesota are not getting picked up, that is why. Because we're not being seen when those things are being drawn. We're not being accounted for when those things are being drawn. And if you are not seen and accounted for when those district maps, those voting maps are being shaped, when you vote, when you're voting your voice, you're not going to see candidates that represent you. If you don't see candidates that represent you, you're not likely going to see candidates that relate to your experiences, to relate to your needs. within that community. And that's why redistricting is an issue that we have taken up fundamentally as a civil rights issue for Common Cause Minnesota. So I really thank you all for giving me the time to share some of these things with you. Again, I just want to remind you that Rosa, myself, Francisco, and Rodolfo, we are your tools. We are here to work with you and to partner with you in any way that we can to make sure that what is important to you gets translated into that from protest to policy process. Gracias.
Thank you so much, Anastasia. I think that you summarized very well the intent of this conversation, and hopefully it will also inspire many in this call to take some action. And as you mentioned, I think that I like this figure of the muscle, because I think that, as you mentioned, our organizations and other organizations also in the community can be those trainers, to fortify or to strengthen that muscle, those vitamins, and also those voices of encouragement, so that, as you mentioned, Anastasia, we can translate that into policy. And that's the role that we see as MCLA, where we can also help your organizations and individuals in the community to translate those aspirations, those dreams, and those requests into policy and legislation. And we have a team to do that, specifically in the areas of education, economic development, and understanding how new Americans make this democracy richer, and can also contribute to strengthen our visibility and our work at the state legislature and state government. So thank you so much, Anastasia. That was a great presentation. And I think that it will inspire others again to look into more resources and also apply for boards. If you can see on the chat, there's a couple of people who have been sharing some vacancies for some appointments for some commissions. So look at those. Everybody has also, I think that we have the contact information for COPAL, for Common Cause, for ACER, for our agency. So you have that information on the chat. I don't see any specific questions here for any of you. I see one for Rodolfo regarding Elsa Norte asks what happened to District 3 in what you were in your graphs or in your data. She asks what happened with District 3. That's all I have as questions so far.
Yeah, if I can answer, is I mentioned it because I was reading it as well as I was doing my presentation. So District 3 is it has only 1.2% of the population being Latino eligible votes. So that's why I didn't show it. I just concentrated for my presentation to those who have largest and say more a bigger weight in percentage for the upcoming election. And also, I wanted to take advantage of what Anastasia said. Census and voting are linked, and just I know there are so many people who are working on this, and we have a phone banking for calling Latinos for the census, and at the same time we are thanks to Anastasia's organization providing information about voting and voting rights and how to do it and all that. So it has to come together, because as better we are counted, the best way we can really exercise this muscle for us to move forward. Otherwise, we are not going to be clear about the district or the redistricting and all these things that happen every 10 years, and how we are positioned in that sense. So yeah, we are having 230 hours next week to call people. So maybe you are going to receive our call. So help our callers and tell them that you already know, but also if you want to share information, it's going to be really welcome to whomever you know as well. So yeah, thank you. Thank you, Anastasia.
Yeah, thank you, Rodolfo. So I don't know if Francisco or Anastasia would like to share a couple of last remarks before we we go. I know that we're getting here at 1:32. So is there anything else that you would like to add before we end our conversation?
I can quick. I just wanted to remind everyone that a couple of days ago, the 9th Circuit Court District ruled out against TPS holders, temporary protected status holders, which impact about 300,000 people. We believe that at least between maybe 5 to 10,000 resides in Minnesota. TPS is a temporary protected status that was given in the 90s to Salvadorians and then Hondurans and then people from Haiti. Those are the 3 largest groups. However, there are 12 countries. And the arguments that the administration used to end TPS, we believe that were based on race, many of the language the administration used, but the court ruled out that when the president referred to countries, those countries as SH countries, was not being using racial language. And so tomorrow at 10 a.m., we are going to have a press conference in Bloomington outside the business of El Guanaco restaurant. The owner has a TPS and they have 2 businesses, about 30 plus employees, and they are affected by this ruling. So I will send the invitation, and if anyone wants to join us, please do it. And thank you, Rosa, and everyone at the team for organizing this and everyone who attended.
Gracias. I just wanted to highlight something very quickly as well, and that is the following. People count on us as a Latino community to stay home. People have many disinformation and misinformation when it comes to who we are as Latinos. And I urge you that whenever we engage members of our community, even in our own lives, as we navigate our communities, as we go shopping, as we engage our comadres, compadres, familias, iglesias, whoever they may be, that we always make it a point to discuss ourselves through asset-based lens, and be very careful not to feed into the negativity or the stereotype that we sometimes unconsciously, sometimes contribute to. Always, when it comes to voting, talk about us as a power to reckon with, because we are exactly that. It is so important that we remember to vote safely. Please encourage people to take advantage of the absentee ballot. If someone has issues or needs help, contact Francisco, myself, Rodolfo. My cell phone number, I'm going to say this, is 651-341-9734. Text me, call me. It doesn't matter what time of day or night. This is an all hands on. No, seriously, this is serious. This is seriously a major issue that we're confronting, because we didn't even talk context to this. We want our families safe. So I'm putting myself out there personally. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Rosa, for always being such a leader in creating these kinds of spaces for all of us to come together and talk.
Yeah, well, you're more than welcome. I want to say how proud you make us, how proud that the work that you do makes us very proud and inspire our work. I think that as a community that is growing and is organizing, I think that that's how we're going to continue showing that muscle, that political muscle, and particularly that civic engagement that, as Francisco was saying, we need to continue that education. So I want to thank you on behalf of the council, on behalf of my team as well, for being with us this afternoon. And for those who were attending, we will be sharing the presentations and the videos and also the resources that everybody contributed this afternoon, which was one of the purposes as well of having all of us starting the conversation. It's just the starting of a conversation that will go for at least another 2 to 6 months. So let's stay tuned. And thank you again, Anastasia, Rodolfo, and Francisco. Hasta pronto. Y gracias a todos por estar con nosotros.